Timeless 106.1 KFFB. This is Bob Connell. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of Open Mic Program. As promised, we do have Congressman Rick Crawford with us. He's with the 1st Congressional District here in Arkansas. Congressman, thanks so much for taking time and talking with us.
You bet. Glad to do it.
You know, one thing you got to look at, Rick, it seems like this coronavirus has really hit home in our listening area. We've had so many cases. In Cleburne County, they just came out with John Hopkins, ranks Cleburne County 14th in the country in terms of the number of cases per capita. That just shows you how it is really Arkansas is part of this national tragedy, really.
Well, it really is. And, nobody's immune. It doesn't make a distinction between gender or race or ethnicity, any of that, political persuasion. It's an equal opportunity attacker. It just so happens that we have seen an inordinate amount here in the state of Arkansas. And as you mentioned, Cleburne County being on a per capita basis 14th in the nation as we look at county-by-county statistics. And, that's a little unsettling. The reality is we're going to get on the other side of this, and I think sooner rather than later, and we just got to continue doing what we're doing, and that is to make good decisions with regard to being out of the home, limit your exposure to other people, the social distancing, and we'll get past it. I mean, it's an inconvenience. I think there's a lot of folks that are working from home. They're probably getting cabin fever. A lot of workers that have been displaced as a result of this. We're going to come through it. On the other side of this thing, I think we'll be a heck of a lot better off, get our economy back up and running again.
Even some of your colleagues have come down with the coronavirus.
Well, that's right. We have, I believe at last count, I think we have 5 members of the House of Representatives that are positive. So obviously members of Congress are not immune either.
One thing looking at, a lot of folks are looking forward to mid-April this month that they're expecting checks. How do you think that's going to play out for the economy? Because we're paying people to stay home, basically.
Well, tough choice one way or the other. I mean, I had an individual suggest to me, and it really makes sense that, well, what we need to do is just isolate sick, and that means, seniors and immunocompromised, and let it run its course in the herd. And that way the herd will be inoculated. It'll develop an immunity. And, it makes sense if we're running cattle. That's probably what you do. But that's a big gamble to take on human life. And so I just don't think we're ready to take that type of an approach. Although I understand, the basis for the comment, we can't really run that type of a risk. On the other hand, we need our economy to be thriving in order to care for people. And our economy can't thrive if we don't have people out there, impacting the economy. Danged if you do, danged if you don't type of scenario. So I think you have to err on the side of caution, and that being public health. This is going to impact us for a long, long time, but it's something that I think is necessary if we are to adequately address the public health issue. And so we've got to figure out what we're going to do when we get to the other side of this. Maybe by the time Memorial Day rolls around, we'll be ready to lift the social distancing protocols. I don't know. I'm not in that position. And we're going to rely on Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and Vice President Pence and the President of the United States. They're the ones that are making those decisions, but at the federal level. But quite frankly, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think our governor is doing a pretty darn good job of addressing this. And really, that's where the fight has to take place, is at the state level, because the states know their people better than the federal government knows their people. And so, yes, there's guidelines, the common sense guidelines that the CDC is prescribing. But at this point, and you can see that this has been kind of Donald Trump's approach, he doesn't want to usurp the authority of governors, allowing governors to govern and manage at the state level, given the federal resources that we can triage out to the appropriate places. New York is going to be the epicenter. It is the epicenter, and so they're going to get the bulk of the resources early on. And as we start to see those cases decline and the situation there abates to some degree, then you've got to shift that out and direct it elsewhere. New Orleans could be another hot spot. It looks like that's starting to trend in that direction. So, we're going to make some decisions here in Arkansas. That's going to be the governor's call. We're seeing some states around Arkansas that are kind of acting in a similar manner.
I think that's really important when we look at the governor. I mean, they've been doing daily press conferences as the president and keeping people informed more so than I have seen in any type of national emergency ever. as many press conferences we have, and that's our 24-hour cycle probably driving some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the governor calling for the Buffalo River National Park to be closed by the federal government. He also having the state parks closing for overnight to limit out-of-state people coming in. So there's
Right.
other ways you can do it, and some of them really are smart moves, really. You can look at it that way.
Well, here's the thing is that we in the United States, we are blessed that we can come and go and do as we please wherever we want to go. And then each state is responsible for securing their state. And so I just happen to be aware that there was a member of Congress, and I believe there may be other members of the delegation in Tennessee that wrote a letter to Governor Hutchinson asking him to stop movement into the state of Tennessee because Memphis is such a hot spot. And so I'm more concerned about people from Memphis coming to Arkansas than I am vice versa. But I also understand the feelings of the folks in Tennessee. Is the governor going to issue that order? I don't know. But I don't know that the governor of Tennessee has locked down his state yet. And so, but I do know that these governors talk a lot and they coordinate whatever decisions are made. I'm sure they're made in consultation with their neighboring governors.
That's true. And that's something, it's unprecedented. It's just unprecedented. And even the president talked about locking down New York, and New York had a fit, but that's where the epicenter is right now for America. So it makes sense to quarantine the state. But this is something that's unprecedented. We don't know where to go. Hopefully we're bending that curve. And it looks like governor did show that we are beating some of the projections.
Yeah, that's the good news. I think that, you always want to manage expectations, err on the side of caution. It's much easier to walk that back if you start seeing things move in your favor than in reverse. I was talking with a member of the media about this earlier. It's a delicate balance, between fear-mongering and managing expectations. And what you don't want to do is to go out in front of people and project doom and gloom and all is lost and it's terrible and it's the worst thing in the world. And at the same time, you have to shoot straight with people and let them know, it could get this bad. We need to be prepared for these contingencies. It's possible this could happen, and we want to be prepared for it. It's a heck of a lot easier to say, we got the numbers wrong. It actually looks really a lot better than we thought, than it is to say, we got the numbers wrong and it's way worse than we imagined. What we want to do is just sort of ourselves as citizens of this country. And I mean, I say that as a constituent of our governor and a constituent of the president of the United States. What we want to do is do our part and be aware of what's going on and be prepared so that we can be helpful to the extent possible and be a part of the solution and not contributing to the problem.
Rick, one thing we got to look at is so amazing. I love when we do have problems that hit America because you see the cream rise to the top. You see the leaders that come out, like businesses. Restaurants said you can no longer have dining. They turn around, flip, and now they're doing curbside business. You're seeing those grocery stores pushing like they've never done before. You're seeing our healthcare professionals rise to the occasion. I mean, it's America at its best, and it's just awesome seeing them all come together. And that's what separates those that are going to lead and those that are going to wait for someone to lead.
Well, that's one of the great things about America. We improvise, we adapt, and we overcome. And that's the American way. And it's going to happen now. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these lessons with us going forward, and we'll learn from it. We're going to identify some gaps and weaknesses, and we'll close those gaps, and we'll strengthen those weaknesses, and we'll do better, and we'll be stronger going forward. This is something that we can view it as something terrible, or we can choose to view it as, maybe an opportunity to learn something about what our strengths and weaknesses are and how we improve on those weaknesses and build on those strengths. And I think that's what typically drives America. And so that's going to happen here. And just something else, I want to say this. I think we as constituents and citizens of Arkansas have to recognize the immense weight on the governor's shoulders. And not only on this COVID, but then Saturday in Jonesboro, we had a tornado rip through town. And oddly enough, the COVID-19 posture in this instance saved hundreds of lives in my estimation. Because at 5:15 on a Saturday evening in Jonesboro, on any other Saturday, and every restaurant in town would have been jam-packed and the mall would have been bustling. And that's exactly what path the tornado took. It essentially totaled our mall. It knocked down several businesses, and it decimated a couple of restaurants that, like I said, would have been packed at the dinner hour. And then it went on to total our airport, not to mention displacing a huge amount of people out of their homes. And in spite of that, we had 22 injuries reported, none of them life-threatening, and only 2 hospitalizations.
That's a miracle. That's a miracle.
It absolutely. You know, in the midst of all of this, and you see these things happen, and then you go, that is absolutely a miracle, because on any other Saturday, that would not have been the case. And so it just makes you sit back and sort of think about, where is God in this? He's everywhere. And, you know, we are in his hands. If we can't do anything else, we can take some consolation in knowing that God is in control.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something to see. You know, I was on the air that night for the tornado watch until 7. And our last county that we cover is Jackson County, which is Newport area. And it touched down there. And I have never seen the National Weather Service firing off, this is massive, huge debris. It kind of tapered off a little bit as it was going into Lawrence County. Then it picked back up. And that is the one that they carried on in Jonesboro. And the guys in the broadcast there did a phenomenal job, too.
Well, they did. And you know, I had to brag on Ryan Vaughn and Zach Holder. Those two were on the air. And Ryan pretty much called an audible there at the line of scrimmage, because the National Weather Service had downgraded. And he's like, no, I don't think so. I think I'm going to keep watching this thing. I was watching his coverage because the alarms went off. They said, here's the path. The path was really right outside my door. I had my daughter with me at the house. My wife and my son were gone. They had to run up to Walmart. Walmart wouldn't let them leave. They were sheltered in place at Walmart. So there's me and my daughter in our shelter, and that is a very unsettling feeling too, because I don't have my entire family with me. I've got me and my daughter, and you know, it would not have been a good risk for Stacy and Will to run for the truck and try to drive to the house and beat the storm that was supposed to come right by our house. So that would have been a bad decision. So they waited it out at Walmart, and they were fine and we were fine. And so we were fortunate, but it went straight through town. You know, like I said, blessing in disguise that we're practicing social distancing right now, and people are not going out as much as they usually do. And a lot of restaurants are closed or just doing either curbside or no contact delivery right now. So there's very few people. And I'm just telling you, it was a big blessing.
It's amazing news that we've seen coming out of Arkansas in the past month. It is totally different than what you and I saw before the first of the year being together. It's totally different for sure, for all of us.
Yeah, but you know, for your listeners, though, I mean, when we see these things, I think we just need to re-examine and say, look, God doesn't give us a spirit of fear. So while it's difficult when you see this stuff going around, particularly if you've got someone suffering from coronavirus, or even worse than that, if you've lost a loved one to it, it's a real test of your faith. It's difficult. It's hard to console people who have suffered that kind of loss in any circumstance. And that's true in this case too, but God doesn't give us a spirit of fear. Just take consolation in that and know that we're going to get over this. We're going to get to the other side. It feels like a long, long time, but we're going to look back on this and we're going to come out on the other side stronger for it.
We'll all remember it too. Well, Congressman Rick Crawford, thanks so much for taking time and talking with us here on KFFB's Open Mic, and you be safe.
I will. Appreciate you.